Welcome to You Should Get a License, the podcast edition. And look, this is where we actually interview other industry professionals to talk about really one of the most lucrative and phenomenal opportunities that's available today. That is a career in the insurance industry, specifically insurance industry sales. And today, we have someone with us. I'm so happy to have this gentleman to kick it off. Our very first interview on You Should Get a License, the podcast. And just a few things to know about this gentleman who's coming on. He's a graduate of Columbia School of Broadcasting. He's actually has a very storied background and has done everything from being a radio on-air talent and DJ to being a marketing specialist to being an IT manager to, joining, of course, the insurance industry and having phenomenal success there. He's a Christian minister.
Yeah.
He's worked in the entertainment industry. He has a great family. He really is the embodiment of, if you give what you get, and if you give the good, you're going to get the good back. He loves the freedom that's being offered with what he does, and we're going to talk about that and more. Also, a cancer survivor. I mean, there's just so many things to know, and we're going to discuss it all. I want to give it up to Medicare supplement specialist, Mr. Kevin Bledsoe. Kevin, how are you doing today, sir?
Doing great, man. Doing great. Thanks for having me on the show.
Hey, awesome. Hey, thank you for being here. First, when we, get into these conversations, I really want to just kind of give folks a little bit of a background on who you are. And since we are talking about, getting licensed and getting into the insurance industry, can you tell me a little bit about, your specific area of specialty in insurance?
Well, the first thing I want to say is that we're sanctioned by Medicare. And so we have to be very careful as to how we speak about Medicare sales. However, the industry is the industry. Insurance is insurance. It is to mitigate risk, and for these individuals that I help every day, they are a senior population. I am grateful that I was given that opportunity. The opportunity, I didn't find it; it found me through just a path of careers. My degree is in information technology, and I worked in that industry for over 20 years. 13 of it being an IT manager. And after that, I was laid off in 2004 by a very known company, right? Mm-hmm. And, after a 7-year run of being a lead in leadership in IT, here we were, going forward. And all of a sudden my job was ending. And it was disheartening, but the company was good to us. They gave us an opportunity to go to school. And so they paid my way through school at Columbia School of Broadcasting. I graduated in radio and television. And it was an exciting time for me because being an artist, as you know, after your day job, that is your focus, right? So I looked at it as an opportunity to transition into something I really, truly love doing. And so shortly after that, the timeline is long, but shortly after that, I got into radio as an on-air DJ and then as a marketing specialist. And I volunteered a lot for the American Heart Association, Cancer Society, diabetes, right? And when volunteering with those organizations, you become very intimate with the senior population. And so someone came along and said, well, Kevin, you volunteer a lot with the seniors. There's a job that I think you would really be interested in. And this is where my life merged with what you want to tell people, want to get them to understand. And that is that the insurance industry, a lucrative industry, is open to anyone who's willing to get licensed, because that's exactly what I did. Right. So, she says, hey, get your license. I'll put in a word for you. And here's where I think you would have a huge, some huge success. And she wasn't wrong. Right. Didn't take me long. I got licensed. And for those of you who don't consider yourselves, master degree, college educated. It's okay, right? It's okay. You study for the test, you pass the test, and you cross the line, right?
Right.
You cross the starting line. And from there, you are in control of your destiny. Because I actually was, right? I've been in this business now 10 years, and I do not regret a day of transitioning into the healthcare industry as an agent. And just looking forward to doing some positive work, some gratifying work to help individuals understand healthcare and understand insurance, because it is complex. So again, I'm grateful.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And, I appreciate, you starting it off with, hey, it got to be, mindful of how we speak to, Medicare sales, especially because compliance is a big thing,
Yes.
with insurance. It is something that we pay attention to. And so whoever's listening, I'll definitely make sure you take note of that. I want to, kind of rewind it a little bit. I think your journey, starting from, growing up in public housing, and now being a six-figure earner. And I think it's important to speak to that so people know what the opportunity is. I would love to, hear about your upbringing. And specifically, what I really like to know is when you were young, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Okay. Great question, man. I don't get that question often enough. When I was growing up, law enforcement, military, I wanted to be, like most kids in those industries, right? And when I grew up, my mom raised 9 of us, and that's how we ended up in public housing, because she couldn't afford to take care of 9 kids and be in, other areas. We had to rely on just my mom and what they considered welfare back then. But my mom always, one, we had a Christian background. My mom always said that you can be whatever you want to be, but she left off. She added one thing to that most people leave off, and that is you can be whatever you want to be within the talents that God has given you. Because once you step outside of your talents, then you're on your own. But she always encouraged us. She had us in schools that were not necessarily schools that we went to in our neighborhood, versus a school called Mosby Middle, who is now Martin Luther King Middle. She actually somehow got us bused over to John B. Carey, which was a model school. And then from there, we went to Henderson Middle, which was another model school. And from there, John Marshall. But then I wanted to go to school with the kids in my neighborhood when I became a teenager. So I went to Marshall, I went to Walker. And then that last senior year, they transferred all of us back over to John Marshall. All the seniors went back over to the John Marshall building, which is next door to my middle school, which was Henderson. Mm-hmm. However,
yeah, if you're Richmond, Virginia, John Marshall and Henderson.
Yeah. And the thing is, when I was growing up, there were always opportunities to hang on the streets, right? To sell drugs, to be involved in activities that were against the law. There were always opportunities there. But I want to encourage anybody who is struggling right now through that process to understand that if you simply get licensed, you can sell a product like we sell, like you and I, just like you can drugs legally.
Look, we were just talking about that. Last week, we were talking about that, how, these guys, young guys, or girls, I don't know. Everybody, I guess, may be involved, but you go out and you're still working long hours, right? You're still working long hours, in whatever weather, trying to, grind or make it happen on the corner, whatever the case may be, running around. And the reality is, insurance is like it's, if you want to put it in the hustling category, it's a legal hustle.
Yes.
Because Not look, instead of serving people something, that's going to hurt them, you're actually serving something that's going to help them.
Yeah.
And probably make it more income too. I don't know what corner boys make, but I would imagine that most decent insurance agents who are doing well and consistent, particularly if they've been around a year or two or a few years, are doing probably about the same, unless they're Tony Montana or something like that. I mean, then it might be a little bit different. You might have to take some different roads, but
well, but even Tony Montana,
yeah.
Listen, there's a risk involved.
Yes, absolutely.
It's not worth it. Many of those individuals that are doing time right now will tell you, I wish I chose another route. And that other route could have been just what we're talking about today.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. What do you feel like? I know you said that, with your mother and raising you and saying, hey, you can do whatever you do within the talents that God gave you. Do you ever felt like, you had that fork in the road where, you can make a choice to go here or go there? Did you ever feel like you had that moment where you had to make that decision?
Absolutely. I mean, many times
okay.
Because when you are faced with situations where there's not enough food in the house to feed everybody properly, right?
Mm-hmm.
When dad is, wherever, and mom is bringing home toys that are secondhand from, Salvation Army, on Christmas.
Yeah.
You appreciated it, but you were old enough to know that those were used toys, and the hunger in you and the desire to want to do better made you at least look at those opportunities. But I never got caught doing anything wrong. But neither did I live that life, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you grow up in those environments, you're gonna look at it, you're gonna experiment with it,
right.
But at the same time, you don't let it consume you. And when I decided to go to college, to get my degree in information technology, I always knew I performed well in school. I always knew that school was going to be my direction, and education was going to be my direction. And why? Because my mom told me so. She said, you can be whatever you want to be within the talents that God has given you. But she always made sure that we went to school. You couldn't stay at home from Virginia. Right. Virginia's my mom.
So you're going to school.
And see, back then, it was the neighborhood who watched the kids.
Yeah.
I mean, we were raised by the village. Yes. If you were around the corner, Miss Tina is going, if she see you doing something wrong, Miss Virginia gonna know about it.
Right.
If you were seen walking, you're not on a bus, she's gonna know about it. And so we always, school was important in our lives. Education was important in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what drove me to wanting, to get a college education. And, I was a good student. I made good grades in school.
Yeah.
And, it's all because of my mom.
Awesome. That's what moms do. That's what moms do. I want to, definitely, touch on the fact that you mentioned, your mother's influence. You also mentioned the college education, that you had. One of the things that I always found fascinating about, the insurance industry is that, as you said, you took your exam, you ended up getting licensed. You didn't have to have, I mean, obviously it's great to have the support system, but you didn't have to have the college degree, to do, what you're doing now. I know that there are people who are listening, and maybe they're going from, they're doing this career, that career. Maybe they're trying to figure it out. I mean, maybe they're looking at, whatever opportunities exist, on videos or whatever the case may be nowadays. But what is your thought? What are your thoughts as far as how, because this is a big thing now. This is a big thing, especially with young people going to college in general. this is a big topic of conversation,
Yes.
right? And for having an insurance license, I have a degree. I got my degree a little bit later, but I found that even before I got the degree, I still was able to, work and make some moves. By the time I found insurance, that was done. But what's your stance on that? What's your stance on someone who says, I don't know if I want to go to college. Maybe can I just do this?
Yeah. So, the first thing I want to say is that, getting a college degree, it says a couple of things, that you have the fortitude and aptitude to complete something, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as you said, that's not required to be that person, right? The
Right.
college education is not necessary for you to have the fortitude and aptitude to complete something.
Yes.
That can come from a desire from within. That can
Mm-hmm.
come from a hunger, a certain type of hunger. And you do not have to have that past to be successful in this business. You only have to apply yourself to the products that you are looking to sell.
Right.
Period. If you
Right.
can apply yourself to the products, to learning the products that you're looking to sell, you can be successful in this business. But it requires what? A license.
A license. You got to get. Of course, you got to get the license in order to get started.
That's what this is all about.
That's what it's
Gotta
all
get a
about.
license.
You got to get the license in order to get started. Your career, you talked about it early, just kind of introducing, yourself and telling your story. I want to talk about those things, those experiences that you've had. I mean, look, and I didn't even touch on, the acting and the music, early on. You're an actor, a thespian, a real actor, a thespian, a singer, radio personality, DJ. You've done the marketing, you've done the IT as well. How do you think, those skills from those previous experiences have helped you in, your career as an insurance agent, or have they helped you at all? Do you feel like they've helped you at all?
It's a great question. And the answer is yes, absolutely. They've helped. One, they build confidence, right? Two, they build character, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as an actor, we're acting every day.
Right.
As we communicate, sometimes the truth comes out, and then sometimes a version of the truth comes out. We're acting in those times. We may hold something back because we aren't ready to share.
Mm-hmm.
Identifying personalities and the types of personalities. As a manager, you look at the 4 quadrants, and you have to understand how to manage the people that work for you.
Right.
And so, a lot of what I learned along the way came from a lot of what I've learned came from all of those tries, or all of those things that I've done.
Yeah.
I was represented by Carson's agency in New York City. I've auditioned for some Broadway shows, got a call back for one. I was
Awesome.
excited.
Yeah.
Didn't get chosen. Could have been the launch of my career, but that's not what God wanted for me at the time, I guess. Right. And then being able to take an event, right, as an artist, and this, building an event,
Mm-hmm.
being able to get tickets sold, get the right people invited, get the place done,
Yes.
solidified, not in that order, but all those things needed to be done. The planning, the event planning that I took on as I tried to master my music career.
Mm-hmm.
I do that today. I'm one of the very few individuals who do a member appreciation event 3 times a year pre-COVID, right? If I hadn't had those skills from back then, I may not be effective in doing that.
Yeah.
But I even perform live for my members, right? So so that's a direct hit to learning from my past.
Yeah. I share with some of the agents that I work with, that they really have to be able to incorporate whatever creativity they have, or whatever unique abilities they have and bring them, into their experience as an agent. And I know that you've made a really strong bridge, between the two. It's not easy to do. I'll tell you, for me, it was it's been a big disconnect. I would say even up until this year, I wouldn't talk about, what I did musically when I
What?
was in it. I would not talk about that, in the insurance environments. I mean, if somebody brought it up, then I would have to talk about it. But it's not something that I would include in the conversation. And it hasn't been until really, really, towards maybe end of last year, last quarter of last year, this year, that I realized that, man, all of these things that you've experienced, are really a complete picture of who you are. And it's okay to share all those aspects, right? I don't do shows, but, taking that process of being able to, put the events together as you managed, or even like what we're doing now, having the interviews and the podcast, these are the, it's not the same forum. It's not the same type of platform, but it still utilizes a portion of creativity. And, I'm still bridging, those things that I've done in the past to say, hey, if it doesn't matter where you come from, it doesn't matter what your background is, right? Because agents have such a diverse,
Yes.
right? such a diverse array of industries that we come from. You have people who have been entertainers, right, that end up, joining the insurance industry. You have people that have been in food services that join the insurance industry, coming from a little bit of everywhere. So I think with you specifically, what's really cool is that you got a little bit, you have a piece of this, because you're an IT manager. You were an IT manager as well. So very technical job, but also are a creative person and musician, right? So left brain and right brain just kind of firing on all cylinders. What This is leading me into actually a question, believe it or not. So what would you say are some of the skill sets that, someone who is looking to get licensed and join this industry, what are some of the skill sets you think they need to come to the table with, and mindsets they need to come to the table with? And then the second part of that question, and we can come back to it. I'll refresh it if we need to, but what do you think that they'll be able to cultivate once they actually join the industry and start working in it as well? Like what do you think it's going to add? And please even share, what do you think it's added to you? So the first question is, what skill sets, what type of mindset do you think that person needs to have coming in day one? And then the second part of that is, what do you think joining the industry will add to them from a skill set and development standpoint? Over to you.
Well, first of all, the most important skill set is communication, right? Internally, you want to make sure that you communicate that you work in honesty and integrity. Now, some do it even if they don't. But what you want to do is make sure that you communicate that, because everybody, most agents are working with honesty, right? But those who are doing it need to talk about it, because everyone isn't doing that.
Yeah.
Right. You can assume that the person thinks that you're honest, but if you don't literally tell them, so communication being the number one skill set. And then organization. I took a Franklin Covey class, right? And that class really taught me how to take my day. And I took a project management class, right? If you have a goal and you need to meet that goal, and then you have tasks necessary to reach that goal and timelines attached to those tasks, when they are done, the goal is complete. That type of mentality needs to be a part of your day, because when you have the independent life as a salesperson, there is no way that you can spend your day at the beach,
Right.
for lack of a better term, and be successful at sales.
Yeah.
So you have to have great planning skills. And Franklin Covey taught me that take a jar, for instance, and you have things that need to go in that jar. You've got big rocks, you've got small rocks, and you've got sand.
Right.
Well, if you put the big rocks in first, meaning you work on the large portions of that project first,
you got
then
the room.
Put in the small rocks.
Mm-hmm.
Then when you put in the sand, they filter right on through, right?
That's right.
So it's just a mental or a visual that really helps you to understand how to plan, the pieces and parts that are necessary to get the job done. So planning, is necessary. Communication is necessary. And being able to overcome disappointment, right? Now, I don't know that that's a skill set that you can acquire by, taking a class or working on it, but be prepared, because there are going to be days when you have great sales activity and everybody's buying from you and you're on a high. But then on those days when you're not selling, you can't allow it to get in your spirit. You can't allow it to get you down. You've got to rise above it. You've got to remember that there was a day that I can bring back to now.
Mm-hmm.
But understand what steps you need to take to get there. Maybe you need to change the way that you're selling. Maybe you need to change the way you're prospecting.
Mm-hmm.
But certainly there's a need to make sure that your day is planned out properly. So I think the most important are communication and time management.
Communication, time
and
management.
How I've applied those to my life is every day that I wake up, my day is planned the night before. I have my to-do list, and on the day that I'm about to do it, I'm not wasting any time. I'm checking off the boxes, baby. And not only that, not only am I checking off the boxes, I'm rewriting my list at the end of the day so that I know exactly what I'm doing tomorrow. I'm not waking up wasting time, walking around in circles. What am I going to do? Who's first? Who's second? I know what I'm going to do. My time is money. My time is a commodity, and it's important. And even when communicating with my prospects, I say to them sometimes, I really want to respect your time when I'm setting up a meeting or, trying to make sure that they're going to be in attendance. I really want to, I know that time is a commodity and I respect your time. Well, if you say that to them, then they might just turn around and respect yours because they know it's important to you. You have to communicate what's important to you.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
No, it's great, man. But
no, I love it. So, time management, communication, organization. And I tell you, I love the analogy with, the rocks and the pebbles. Believe it or not, I actually heard somebody say that just yesterday.
Really?
I knew the analogy, but I heard someone in another interview I was listening to actually talk about, that exercise, putting the big, for those who don't know what that is, what Kevin was explaining is that, hey, if you have a jar and you have big rocks, little rocks, and sand, if you put all of the sand in first, you're not going to have any room for those big rocks or for those little rocks. But if you put the big rocks first, then you can put in the little rocks and then you put in the sand for all of those things. And really what that speaks to is really managing your time and managing your priorities, which is, what you were saying, and that definitely is an important skill. Do you feel like someone who would come into this space because, if you haven't done this before, right? If you haven't been in a place where you've had to really be responsible, for your own time, like even for you, Kevin, you were working in IT, right? And you were working for a company at this particular time, but even in the times where I've known you, you've had a lot of flexibility. You've been able to kind of manage your own schedule to a degree, and your work product is what really allowed you to, navigate as long as you were getting those things done that you need to get done. You are coming to the table with that. What would you suggest for someone who is considering this industry that doesn't have, those experiences or that foundation? What would you recommend to them to cultivate that within themselves, the better communication? I know you mentioned the Covey program. What would you recommend, for people to develop themselves and cultivate some of those skills that you've been able to utilize to achieve your success?
Well, so, in suggesting how people would improve their communication skills, I would say class, right? When you are a good writer, you know what to communicate, but in order to communicate it articulately, if that's a word, it takes practice, right? And so there's some programs like or some groups that you can join, the Toastmasters, right? Mm-hmm. It's all about oral speaking, and you get the confidence from doing it over and over and over.
Yes.
Even as an artist, you remember your first time on stage, mm-hmm. right? It's not a good feeling. There's a certain level of nervousness that knocks you off your game. But the next time you go out, it's a little better. But your neck, the hair on your neck is still standing up. You tense in the back of the neck. But then after that third time, you become a little more confident and comfortable. And over and over. And now you can sing the national anthem for NASCAR on national television. I did that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And so,
yes. So not the only pro event, not the only pro sports event that you've done the national anthem for.
No, I did it for the Washington Redskins. Yes. I was a season ticket holder, but I did it for the Washington Redskins as well. Mm-hmm. And I performed, for some very major events and festivals. I performed at the New York Hilton in New York City for Capital One's Debt and Equity Conference. I mean, we both have done some things, entertainment wise, but what I'm saying is the nervousness that takes place in communication, mm-hmm. you just have to continue to do it. You can do Toastmasters or some program like that,
right?
But you have to go through the process. There's no other way to get better at communication than to communicate, and to want and have a desire to communicate effectively.
Yeah.
The person can find a mentor, someone who does it well. If you like I know, sitting down and making sales calls, right? 30, 60 calls a day, mm-hmm. keep doing them. You're going to get better. What you say is going to stick in your head and it's going to start to come out.
Yeah.
But again, keep honesty and integrity in the forefront.
Absolutely. I'm glad that you said that because, our listeners, I believe, are not just those individuals who are, exploring careers in insurance, but also individuals who are also in that career as well. And I think it's important for you to hear for them to hear, you say, hey, look, you might need to make those 30, 45, 60 calls a day, not even a mic. You're going to have to make those 30, 45, 60 calls a day. And you're going to have to do that consistently to make some success, to create success. Right. So it's really about, kind of cultivating discipline to do that as well. So, we've talked about, we said, hey, you got to have, that communication. Toastmasters, great, a great resource, for that, to develop that. What are some tips and tools that you think would help people develop the discipline to be able to sit down and make 30, 45 or 60 calls a day?
Have your manager ride your back until you do it. Right. I mean, honestly, I don't know of a place or an educational path that you can take to prepare you for that.
Yeah.
It just takes someone who has a desire to sell to want to do it.
Yeah.
But I can tell you this, when you finally decide that you're going to sit down and do your due diligence, you're going to start to have the success necessary to reach the income levels that you're after. right? So it's directly tied to how much money you want to make. You have a podcast called you got to you got to get a license, and then you have that other one that says you got to make those calls to make that money. I mean,
you got to do it.
That's
right,
a whole different podcast, right?
Right. Getting the license is the first step.
Sitting there, man, every day, every evening, even after your work day is done, during the day, if you have events and things like that, you still got to make those calls. If you don't make the calls, guess what? Sales aren't coming unless you got a book of business that's just being sent to you. And most companies don't work that way. But even if the book of business is being sent to you, you still got to make the call.
Still got to make the call. Still got to reach out.
You got to reach out. And people can hear in your voice when you do call. They understand, if you're taking your time and explaining things thoroughly, if you're, making small talk and being concerned about them, because people buy from people they like.
Yeah.
And nobody cares what you're selling until they know you care.
Absolutely.
And so we have to have that empathy. We've got to take care of the people that we're speaking to, and we've got to make sure that we're empowering them to be able to make a conscious decision about this product. Not, hey, I want you to make, this is what's right for you, and I want you to buy it, and here's what it costs, sign on the dotted line. That's never that's not going to work in any high percentage sales, because it's not going to bring you a high percentage of returns in your sales process, because people will feel like, wait a minute, you just want to sell me something. Yeah. You're not trying to help me. So along with making those calls, you really got to make sure that the person is educated, is empowered to be able to make a conscious decision. Just I want to share this because it's important for me to be considered, or to be looked at as a person who works in honesty and integrity. It's important for me to be recognized as someone who really want to help the industry and not hurt it. Right. And not to make the quick sale, but to empower. That's important to me. Yeah. And prior to you calling me, I was actually tapped by my company to talk about how I retain my members. Kevin, how do you keep these members? How do you keep them from going to other agents or agencies? How do you keep them? And honesty and integrity was the biggest thing. And then transitioning, because I share my ability to sing, they actually asked me to sing a song representing what it took. And I chose Wonderful World by Louis Armstrong, because I always open it up saying, one thing we can agree on is that we need a little bit more love. Yeah. You gave a little bit more love and I gave a little bit more love. And we gave a little bit more love to our members. What a wonderful world this would be. I see trees of green. That just like put the icing on the cake for the meeting. Yeah. Had I not shared that I sing, they would not have asked me to do it. Yeah. But everybody felt like, that song really fit, because in fact, we want to love on the people that insurance is an important decision for people. And we have to make sure that we treat it with kindness and go forth and make plenty of money while helping people. That's it, man. It's such a beautiful, beautiful bridge, because it does allow you to, have an incredible, career with, some very substantial income. And it also allows you to really do something good for others as well. I do want to shift a little bit, to the income piece. And while I'm listening to you, I'm having more things that I want to discuss, but I also want to keep the flow of the conversation going as well. Just share with me, how has your lifestyle been affected by having a license, working in the insurance industry? What is like one thing
that you say, hey, I can do this now, or I have done this, that prior to getting the license, I either didn't do, or maybe I didn't have, the resources to do?
Yeah. So the first thing is I had a 30-year dream. Uh, when I first moved into my house, I wanted to build a studio in my backyard.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, that studio is under construction.
Awesome.
And it's all because of the money that has been allowed through the insurance industry. The other thing is the freedom. When you work for corporate America, when you work in a place from which you have to be in a building 9 to 5 or whatever your hours are, with a 1 hour lunch break, there's restrictions. If I want to go to a doctor's appointment, I don't have to take off. If I want to take a day off, I can take a day off and map that, of course. But if I decided to, in an emergency, do something different in my day, it's not going to have a huge effect, because the flexibility is unbelievable in this business. The flexibility is one of the things I love about it the most.
Right. Right. No doubt. No doubt, man. Hey, that the flexibility, and congratulations on the studio as well. I certainly can't wait to get by to see that. I definitely want to take you up on that. So for you, how do you stay motivated?
I was sitting just a few days ago, and this may not pertain to everybody, but I was sitting a few days ago, just sort of meditating at lunch in the afternoon. And one, I was just thanking God for being in this situation I'm in, because, as you know, I had the cancer and I was out of work for a whole year, and
yep.
My body's not 100% because there are pieces and parts missing in terms of my skeletal structure. But I was sitting there and I was thanking God, and then saying, Lord, I trust you for my sales today.
Yes.
And all that did really was mentally got me prepared to do what I know I needed to do anyway.
Yes.
Right. So I just, once you've thanked God in advance for something happening, now you have to take the steps necessary to get there. See, people who sit back and pray and do nothing, don't expect it to come. It may, yes, but don't expect it to come out of nowhere. You got to do something. And so that was like putting the carrot before the rabbit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
God, I thank you in advance for my success today. Absolutely. But I had to get moving on that. And then sometimes what motivates me is money. Not always, because right. I'm not a greedy guy, right?
Right.
But when I know that, I can go to Ruth Chris and take my wife to dinner,
yeah,
which we just did last weekend, right? Without having to say how much is the food, or what, what is it going to cost me, or how, it doesn't matter. Yeah. I want to please my wife, right? There you go. When we grow up, we're conditioned to yes. do everything to keep a woman happy. We don't buy nice cars for ourselves, right? You don't buy a big house just for you,
right?
Right? You do things to keep the woman in your life happy, whether that's your mother, sister, wife, girlfriend.
No doubt.
And so we're driven by that. I'm driven by that. I want my wife to be able to say my husband loves me because he takes me places, because he, not that she can't take herself. I mean, she's a manager as well. Right. But at the same time, I want to feel good about the fact that I can step up when I need to.
Yeah.
And having that dream of having my studio.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
I mean, when I think about the fact that that's got to get finished, the money is there to finish it, but what else am I going to need?
Right. You want to
So
keep adding on, keep
I
building
want
it.
to
And
build
there's
on that.
right. And there's another project, that you may want to explore after that. So
Yeah,
I
and
feel you.
that is recording equipment.
There you go. Because got to fill it up.
I got to put the right stuff in it,
That's right. That's right.
Um,
Pro
and
Tools got a lot of plugins.
yeah, yeah. Well, the Apollo 16, I mean, it's got everything you need,
Oh,
but
everything is right there. Okay.
it's an expensive piece of equipment.
Yeah.
And so, it's an interface, but, I have no doubt that this industry is going to provide for me. And, I know I kind of went off, but motivation, man, just wanting to be successful. You got to kind of have a drive to be successful. And whatever I do, I want to be the best. Not to say that I want to be the one who sells the most products.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, you have people who will go against each other to sell, and not in a bad way. It's healthy competition.
Right.
Oh, you've sold, 20 enrollments this month, and I'm coming after you. I'm not that guy, right? I want to be better than I was yesterday.
Right.
Not better than you or this person or that person. I want to be better than I was yesterday. And I have my own, goals to meet, but it's internal for me, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, that makes perfect sense. I wanted to ask about the motivation because it's always, with this kind of business, and many, it's very entrepreneurial, as you mentioned, with the freedom and time flexibility, that time flexibility can be a gift or it can be a curse, for the wrong individual, right? Because they may want to go. I think you made a reference to like going and laying on the beach all day or something earlier, right? This is not something that you can do. You have to be able to work independently. So you have to have that why that's instilled that's going to keep you moving forward. And I really appreciate, that you incorporate, your spirituality into it and saying that, hey, God already trusts you, for what's going to be present today, because that's very powerful. It almost even, can be put into the vein of, like a Jack Canfield, right? And how, he puts the check up and, next thing you know, he's writing Chicken Soup for the Soul. He didn't know that he was even going to be writing that book,
right.
But, hey, you put the intent out there, and then you allow, that divine influence to come in and make it happen. And you're just doing the work to push it forward. I think that's beautiful, man. And I do want to say congratulations to you on a couple of things. One, surviving, that cancer, kicking it in the ass. And since this is a podcast, I can't say ass. So I will say that just for that reference, because you are a warrior and a soldier and a king. And I also want to say congratulations and big props and kudos, for 35 years of marriage, grown children, from one Black man to another Black man. You are an example of what we need to have and show in our communities as well. So I just want to really just kind of give you your props, man, and give you some flowers, just for those things. I just wanted to pause just to do that real quick.
I'm glad you gave them to me while I'm living.
That's right. No doubt. So, as we close out, I asked you, earlier, about, your childhood and what did you want to be, when you grow up? Essentially, what were you dreaming of? You spoke about, law enforcement, you said military, really, those things that would allow you to be of service to the community when they're done correctly, man. Because we're in, man, it's just so much craziness in the world right now. I want to ask you, at this point in your career and in your life, what's the dream for Kevin Bledsoe now? And I heard Pastor Bledsoe coming out too, a minute ago. But what's the dream? What's the dream for you now, Kevin?
So, when you think about the fact that your life has been threatened by cancer, there's, most people don't know, even my family, my immediate family, know what was going on through my head at the time. And to think about the fact that you have a short period of time on your life it gives you an opportunity to think about the very question you just asked me. What do you want to accomplish? What are your goals? And so, because I've thought about it, for a whole year, before I became in remission, I can easily answer the question. I want to live the next day, right? So that's the short answer. Now, when you think about what to accomplish, what I want to be known for, and again, it's that honesty and integrity in all aspects of my life. I want to make sure that I am helping through the church, our congregation, and our community. Mm-hmm. I want to focus my music now on Christianity. I want to speak to people using the voice that God has given me, from Bible verse, from the songs that I write from now on, being those that are uplifting, even if they're not what you call gospel songs, mm-hmm. they can mention some sort of inspiration. And so that's where I want my focus to be, because when you talk about the future of my life, the rest of my life, so to speak, in terms of a career, working career, I only have 8 more years, right? I am going to retire at 67, right? And actually, that's less than.
Is that 8 years for you? That's more than 8 years.
Right now,
Kevin.
I'm 57.
Okay.
I'll be 58 in September.
All right.
And so we can say, I'm going to retire in 67 at 67. So 9 more years.
Okay.
Right. So because I love what I do, it's kind of hard to think about retirement. But
right.
When I retire, I will still sell insurance as a broker. You must get a license for this reason, right? I want to continue my music. I want to continue my work in the church as a preacher, because I think God gave me a serious gift of communication and public speaking to be able to articulate what the Bible is trying to tell us. And I want to guide my kids through their lives, guide my family, whoever is in need. I want to be a public servant, man, of some kind, of many kinds, if you understand what I'm saying, from a Christianity standpoint, from guiding people to understanding insurance, to
yes.
Motivating people to go out and get a license and do what is necessary to take part in this amazing journey of selling insurance.
Yeah.
With honesty and integrity.
Absolutely. With honesty and integrity. I think we found the title, for this episode, with honesty and integrity. Absolutely. What's something that you would tell if someone is thinking, maybe I should get a license? I mean, people actually have been DMing me on my social media, and they're saying, hey, I'd like to, maybe get a little bit more information, and I'll share my my number. I say, give me a call. We'll talk about it. But for somebody who is considering joining this industry, what message, what would you have for them? Maybe they're even, on the fence about it. But for somebody who can't, if somebody came to you and said, I'm thinking about getting my insurance license, what kind of insights would you have to share with me? What would be, kind of the quick insight that you would give them?
Well, first, I'd quickly help them understand what characteristics it requires. And that is a drive, because the freedom, like you said, can be a blessing and a curse. The second thing I'd say to them is that if you have any reserves about spending the money to get the license, find it, because you're going to surpass it by so many light years that you won't even think about that money later, because that is the number one thing that stops people from doing it.
I can't even remember how much it costs to get my license.
That's what I mean. Right. So that's just it. It is. I want them to understand that it's going to give you freedom, income to take care of your family, and that certainly It's not as hard as you think. Study and make it happen, because it's going to be worth it.
Yeah. You heard it, ladies and gentlemen. Kevin Bledsoe, if someone does want to speak to you or communicate with you, get in contact with you, how do they reach you?
Well, you can certainly email me at simplybledsoe@gmail.com. You can call me at 804-437-3205. I'm right here in Virginia. I know the podcast can go worldwide. If you need to put a one in front of the numbers, if you're international, it's okay. I'll take those calls too, because I think that this is that important to understand that you need to get a license. Not you should. You need to get a license.
You need to get a license.
If you're looking for a career that is promising, doesn't take a whole lot, just one test. It's one test.
One test. And just renewals every couple of years. Your continuing ed, which is not the full test, not a test.
No.
But just, some modules.
Man, come on. CEs are so easy. They're time consuming, but they're easy.
No doubt. And even the initial startup costs, we're talking about that, but it's not that prohibitive. And depending on, the company that you get with, or the person that you're dealing with, you might even be able to get, some of those costs either paid or reimbursed in some cases. So you certainly should explore it. And Kevin, I just want to say, thank you very much. If anyone is, looking for someone who is a master, in helping that senior market and really guiding them with their health insurance needs, then Kevin Bledsoe is certainly the one that you want to call. He gave his phone number, so I'm going to give it to 804-437-3205. Make sure that you reach out to him. He can tell you more about, the company that he works with and how he does business. And if you know someone, maybe it's your mother, maybe it's your sister, maybe it's you who needs some assistance and you're entering a retirement age, then call Kevin and he can help you out. He works with my parents. So, I trust him with my parents.
That's right.
You certainly can trust him with yours. And I want to say thank you for taking the time to be here, Kevin. I certainly appreciate it. It's been very valuable. You shared some insights that have been very powerful. I think this is going to impact a large number of people. And maybe they heard something that made them think they should get a license. So thank you. And until next time, we're out.
Peace, love, and harmony through music. Let faith be your guide.
There it is.